Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Steve's Horse Show. On today's episode, we are in Wynnewood, Oklahoma at Topwind Ranch. We're going to show you the basics of ranch trail. Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Steve's Horse Show. I'm with Junebug and Amanda, and we are at Topwind Ranch today in Wynnewood, Oklahoma. We are going to talk about 3 basics and foundations that you can work on in ranch trail if you are interested in getting into that. And we are going to kind of go over some basics and 3 obstacles that you might be presented with in a trail pattern. And today, the first thing that we're going to cover is body control. Amanda's going to show some of the basics that you might need and might come up against in a trail pattern. Amanda, first thing that you would recommend someone to work on is body control. In case you come up to something similar to this, talk about what your preference is on that.
Okay, sure. So the first thing we're going to look at is backing through an L. And so as we're backing through an L, there's a couple things we want our horse to do and we want to have for our look as far as showing. So the first thing is that our horse is willing, they're willingly guided, they're listening to us, they're not getting wiggly or worried, they're not knocking logs over, and they're waiting for our cues. So some of the things we need to have before we even go to the obstacle is we need to make sure that our horse can first of all back up softly, that they can move their body with our legs, because as we back an L we're going to have to move their hip. And that they wait for our cues. So we want to make sure, number one, that they can stand here and relax when we relax, and then we apply the movement. So the first thing we want to make sure that our horse has is a soft backup. How I like to ask my horse to back up is as I'm sitting neutral, I actually shift my pelvis and tip my legs forward and pick up my rein and just ask my horse to back up. When I stop and relax, I want my horse's feet to stop and also relax. This is really important because when you apply it to an obstacle, if your horse doesn't stop and they get wiggly and they start knocking things over, that's when people get in a lot of trouble on an obstacle. And then the poles are taken out and they almost can't even finish the obstacle because maybe the pole gets moved out of place. So this part is very important. It seems kind of simple, but make sure that you can softly back your horse up and they wait for your cue. And when you're done, they stop moving their feet and also wait. The other part that we're going to have to do as far as an L is making sure that they can move their hip and their shoulders, step by step for our cue. The same difference. When I ask my horse to move her hip, I slide my leg back, I push with my leg, and when she moves her hip, I stop moving and I relax. We want to make sure that she doesn't get worried about that and she only does what I'm asking and doesn't overturn. So we make sure we have that equally on both sides because we never know which turn we're going to have to do. So if I slide my leg back, push her hip, and ask her to stop, I know that I can control her hip.
The second thing to work on if you want to get started in ranch trail would be to pull something. So tell us how we can get started with having to pull a log or something like that in a ranch pattern.
Yeah, so before we go ahead and try to drag a log on our horse, we want to make sure, number one, that they're not going to be scared of the log. So if you have never drug a log on your horse, I would recommend starting with a small stick or just a rope by itself with no log attached so that you can safely just let go and not get yourself into a bind. You want to make sure you can rub your horse all over with the rope. They don't scare when the rope touches their butt. You can do this safely from the ground, and then you can do it with a rope without a log so you can let go if something were to scare the horse. Once we know that our horse is not going to spook about dragging a log, we can practice rope control, body control. When we do our ranch trail patterns, sometimes you have to drag a log in just a circle, sometimes you have to drag it in a figure 8. So you want to really practice having control of your horse and control of your rope as you're making those maneuvers. Okay, so as we practice this at home, again, we want to make sure that our horse is really comfortable with the obstacle and they don't get worried or hurried. So what I like to do is walk my horse up into position where I could grab my rope, stop her, let her settle, and if I need to move over so I can grab my rope, just side pass her over a little bit, so that I can reach my rope. Practicing at home, the same thing. We're gonna really just settle her and make sure she's relaxed here so she doesn't get worried. Because when I go to show, you don't want her to be wiggling or worried as I try to get my rope ready. So we take our rope, we put our extra coils in our rein hand, we shift our horse over, and we want to be careful as we plan this, because when we drag our rope, we don't want to take out the rope pole. So once I'm ready to go, I pull my horse up forward, I go ahead and get my dolly, and I walk her straight. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to our rope, that it's not short enough that it's going to hit my horse in the back of the leg, and it's not too long that it's going to take out other obstacles or be a hazard on the course. When it comes to putting our log back, we want to make sure that we make our turn wide enough and plan our approach so that we can put it back in the same spot that we found it. So I'm going to go a little bit wide, then bring her in, pull her a little bit straight, undally, and then I can put my rope back. And then I'm going to let my horse settle before we go to our next obstacle.
The third thing to prepare in a ranch trail, if you're wanting to get into this, would be to practice loping. Amanda, talk about the importance of that.
It's very important because on a ranch trail pattern, you have to pick up the correct lead on different parts of the pattern. And then specifically today, I'm going to show you how to pick up a right lead, and then we're actually going to lope over the log, which is another maneuver that's in the trail.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Steve's Horse Show. And if you are interested in learning more about this, you can visit Top Wind Ranch's website. And if you don't want to mess with teaching your own horse this, you can just buy a horse from them and already have it broke to ride. So thank you for watching this episode.